Hi folks, welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick, I'll be your host. So we are on build video 13A. It's 13A because there's going to be a second part of 13B because this is section 13, which is pretty much dealing with the mast and the last little bit of the forward superstructure part. Pretty much steps 26 through 31 in our instruction manual. Now, this is not going to be an all-inclusive walk through every single step. A lot of this stuff is pretty basic modeling skills. If you're working on this ship, chances are you've got a couple of kits and projects under your belt already. So mainly we're just going to go over in some high-speed motion some of the things I went over, and I'll discuss some of the hurdles I encountered along the way here. Mainly a lot of it is with the main mast piece right here. There's quite a bit of photo etch on there, and there's a couple little gotchas here and there, and a couple little things that I had to go outside of the kit in order to make it happen and make it work for me. Your results might be different, of course, when you get about to working on these parts, but just wanted to go over how I made it happen for me. Additionally, we've got a lot of the other parts right there that are not getting attached right off the bat because they need to undergo some primer paint first. And some of the horizontal deck areas need to get that non-skid before some of these lighter gray pieces go down. This right here is the last little piece of superstructure that goes on that forward superstructure piece. So it's all completed and ready to go. But again, waiting on the non-skid color right there. Here is this radar dish. It goes on top of that. It's going to get all light gray, but it can only go down after we get that non-skid painted on that. Additionally, this right here, which I believe is some sort of a defense mechanism where it just puts a bunch of projectiles or metal into the sky in order to counteract any incoming threats. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and get started here. I'm just going to be over talking a bit of the build videos I've collected and sped up. But again, I just want to let you know it's going to be jumping along a little bit here and there because most of this is pretty basic construction. So where it starts to get a little convoluted or where I stepped outside the kit, we'll definitely go into further detail. Okay, so what we've got going on here is this is just steps 20 or page 23, steps 26. I've already actually gotten the two mast halves assembled together. And through this, we're going to attach some of the little bits and bobs. I think we just got C7 attached right there. I'm going to transition over here, and we're going to start getting some of the little photo etch hatch doors. Or hatch doors. I meant hatches. Again, getting my Navy terminology down. We get some of the hatches attached here. They're in photo etch. They look pretty good, and it's good, fairly flat relief on the mast halves. And then in addition, there's a couple other little bumps there that go on there, mainly off that C sprue also, C8, C15, and 16. So we get those on there. We're also going to move on to a platform here, which is C14 and C24. I think C24 might be like a loudspeaker or some kind of a foghorn or something like that that goes on there. And that's not really televised in this. Again, a lot of this is pretty basic modeling. And I'll reiterate, if you're working on this kit, there's a good chance that you've already done quite a few kits in your time. Maybe not quite a few, but at least several, and you get the ideas of sanding parts down, preparing them for a good join and good fit, and cementing them together properly, making sure that things really go together well. One of the other big parts of getting some of this together is there's a lot of these support struts that go underneath these platforms on this mast. They can be a little bit tricky in cleaning up properly. One, because they're so thin, so even getting them off the sprue can sometimes be a bit of a challenge without breaking them. it's anything this thin. Again, got experience. You're well attuned to the fact that parts that are this thin easily broken just by cutting something off the sprue. So maximum care should be taken care or should be have when separating these parts from the sprue. I found it very helpful also at times to cut the parts of the sprue with the parts away from the main body or the main parts tree, just to kind of isolate those little connection points. Because with the sprue cutters or the nippers or whatever you call them, when you're cutting through that stuff, it's actually forcing the plastic apart at that join spot, and it's not a very peaceful separation either, for the most part. So there's a good chance that you can break something. So again, maximum care. These things are super thin, and then cleaning them up afterwards. A lot of care really needs to be taken care of with the cleanup, because again, it's so thin, they bend easily. So just sanding them, using your knife, making sure you're not slipping, putting as much care as possible into making sure that you're not cutting through the part, or you're not cutting too much plastic off of the part. Those little support struts are some of the trickiest part of these steps with this mast, and they're very easily bent too. So once you've got them in place, you want to try not to bump them or mash them with your fingers while you're holding this. And holding this is not the easiest part either once you start getting all these things attached to it. For what it's worth, I held off on attaching most of the photo etch on this until I got the plastic in place. Once I got the plastic in place, then I was able to get some of the photo etch parts here. But even then, I still left most of the railings off completely, and they're going to wait for priming and painting before I attach them, because there's there's additional painting steps that go into this just to make sure that we get that non-skid grade down on the horizontal surfaces before we apply the regular vertical surfaces lighter gray. So we'll also notice that I left off, there's two D49s on page 24 I left off, C9 I left off. As we go through on page 27, more platform work. We used a little bit of filler and putty to kind of help smooth that out. And then more struts, support struts. And then underneath one of the platforms, there's even two little photo etch parts that you bend over into little V shapes, and then they get attached on there. Special care needs to be taken to make sure that those go in place and you get those properly seated, so that you're not getting super glue smudges and fingerprints all over the place. So in between what we just saw, kind of finished up on page 24, step 27, with right about there. We move on to this spot right here. There are two pieces of photo etch, A31 and A32. Each require a single bend, and then they go on right there on each side. The problem is the instructions are very tricky about this, and that photo etch is not a perfect solution for that. My solution that replaces the photo etch is not a perfect solution either, but it's the only solution I could put into place given what the kit gives you to work with. So if you'll bear with me here, I'll go ahead and try to explain what it is I did. If you will see right here on the finished part, these white pieces here and here, and those continue around this corner of the mast to right there and right there. In fact, you can see right there that is one piece. That right there, one piece right there. So it's made to wrap around this corner, attaches to the bottom of that platform. It's another separate piece of plastic right here. But that's what that photo etch piece right there is supposed to do. This is one of those times where the photo etch that the kit manufacturer gives us is not the best solution. In fact, it could be just their attempt to add a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more frosting on the cake, but it's unnecessary and very, very imperfect. So, and because the brass is already pretty soft and flimsy, did not work out for me. I tried and I tried and I tried. And I don't have any filming of it because my head was right here about an inch away from this the entire time. So filming that would have been strictly impossible unless I had a camera attached to my eyeball. But what I ended up doing was I put this aside real quick. I took some Tamiya tape after I got these parts reflattened over top of the part, and then took my X-Acto knife, traced around the part on the tape with the resulting piece of tape. I was able to transfer that over to a piece of fairly flimsy plastic, just a little bit thinner, just a little bit thicker than this, really kind of to match the thickness of the photo etch here. But that's really about it. And then I was able to take that with just using regular Tamiya cement rather than super glue to give myself a little bit of working time and without making a complete mess. And I was able to get that in place, get that tacked down, and then adjust a little bit and get it perfectly situated the way I wanted. Afterwards, went back in and put these little pieces right here and here. And those right there are the pieces that on this piece of photo etch bend. So when you separate this from the sheet, that's not where it's supposed to bend, but there's a bending point right there. And that's where it's supposed to bend. And that tiny little bent part is what those little white pieces of plastic right there are. Now, after that, another thing you'll see here before we flip the page is these two back pieces here. This mast is kind of a tripod. There's the main mast section, and these are kind of like the back supports. These back supports go on, and you have to shave off the very tips of those. They're a little triangle shape cross section. You have to shave off the very tips of those so they fit up into the mounting area on the bottom side of this platform. And these are supposed to, one side of these are supposed to go flush with those pieces that we just, or that I just made my own solution to. So you can glue that down the side and it helps form a perfect angle for these to fit into their respective locations on the superstructure. It is a lot of work, as you can see, even right after I separated them from the sprues. I ended up marking them with S for starboard and P for port, so I knew where they went on this and where they would fall on the superstructure part. So just wanted to clear that up real quick. Those are white plastic pieces, not photo etch pieces, and it made putting these back pieces on a lot easier too, because I was again able to use plastic cement versus super glue. So now that I get that cleared up, we'll move on to our next step. Okay, so this part here is concerning page 25 and step 28. So we can see right now we're working on getting part C2 attached to our mast assembly there. At this point, we've got the tripod set up, and that upper platform right there that this C2 part is attaching to should be together, and you should have some kind of a filler or something there in the way, just to kind of help make that look like one unified piece. Now, I didn't do that. I chose to rush ahead, rush in, and not do my due diligence there with properly preparing everything and making sure that that was put on there straight. And because of that, I paid for that. So I had to shave a bit off of the back of that platform where C2 attaches. And even then, it still didn't line up 100% level. So I had to mess around with a little bit, put just a slight little bend to the starboard side of C2 in order to get that lower support strut to attach properly to the starboard rear tripod beam. And because of that, a few other things here and there were kind of a unique challenge to deal with. But in the end, it all worked out. I did end up taking some Tamiya putty, thinning it down with some Tamiya cement, and mixing that up and kind of applying that and shellacking it on there. I find that that mixture is pretty good because it allows for a really nice, good, smooth finish. And it also fills into cracks very decently. But you can see the majority of this right now segment here then, which I'm speaking, is just concerning getting that part C2 attached there properly. Once that's on, then you can see there's several other parts that are going to go onto that in the instructions. And for the most part, like photo-etch A29, I left that off until a little bit further down. Photo-etch A24 and A25 I did get into place at this point in time because I was able to manipulate this mast piece without breaking anything off. It was really fragile. But I also left off of photo-etch A30 at this point, and some of the photo-etch A49, 47, 45, 46, 48, and 50. I left that off right now also. We'll get into that here in a bit. We did get into adding one of the upper platforms here, as you can see, part M1. You can get that put in and kind of just checking at this point in time, making sure that it is going to be level. Didn't want to make a mistake like I had previously with the platform in which C2 attached to. So I also left off C11 and C25 because they're going to need to get that Tamiya's XF12 color applied to them, and then they're going to go down on top of where that non-skid color would be. So I'm going to paint that deck color first and then get those parts attached afterwards. So another part of this that we're looking at right now is some of these support struts there, C5 and C6. They're attached to the bottom of that platform we just put on, as well as the photo-etch pieces A72 and A73. C5 and C6, just like the other plastic support struts, very fragile. They're very small, very easy to mess up while you're cleaning them up, and heck, for that part, even getting them off of the sprue. So after you get those off and get those cleaned up, a little bit fiddly to get in place, but can be just done with tweezers. And I use the fast setting extra thin Tamiya cement in order to kind of get those down into place properly. Photo-etch A72 and A73. Just some of the medium CA glue really helped get those into place. Those parts were especially fragile, and the placement was a little difficult. There was a positive, almost a positive fit location on the mast for photo-etch A72, but for photo-etch A73, either there was not a good positive attachment spot, or I had previously sanded it off. Not really sure which, but for the most part, it's right there at the very edge of the main mast part. You know, just kind of opposite of where A72 would be on the edge. A73 is on the opposite edge. So you get those lined up properly, and all in all, it looks really good in the end after you're done. They take a step back, check out your work, It looks pretty good. It really starting to show that the mast is coming together the way it should be, and it'll be make for a very nice finished piece. Well, the rest of the mast construction was not filmed. There were some parts that were filmed, but again, the part was here. My head was right here. So it wouldn't have been great for you to look at the back of my head for minutes and minutes on end. Other people say it's pretty handsome back of my head, but you guys don't know me. So M3, pretty quick and easy. Very, very top platform that goes in on the mast before the crow's nest area goes in there. Pretty quick and easy. Just sanded down. Got it in there real quick. And we can see that right there. And then we got a couple photo etch pieces here that are going to go underneath it to help support that platform. Just kind of barely see those and get something here to actually point those out. Camera. Right there. There's two pieces there and right there. Two more pieces right there. In addition, make sure that we call out special attention to D34 and a little photo etch bent part right there. Next part on page 26 is adding C13. This is just as delicate as C2 down here also. This went on much more smoothly because I learned my lesson from down here and applied those learned lessons to my work up here. Everything's nice and level. Very even. Everything went on without a hitch. Just special care cutting these parts out. Again, there's so many different sprue attachment points, and cleaning them up is tedious, but a good job is definitely necessary. As we move on, it's about time to start attaching some of the photo etch parts. So I'm going to go back here, and this is where I put in A29. You can see it right here. Very fiddly, but it went on. Just got to be really patient and very, very steady with your hands and the tweezers on kind of holding that in place until the medium CA starts to gel up a little bit. And then we also got these pieces right here. These are 6 separate photo etch pieces. They go in here, and I'd like to call your attention to the fact that there is a slight 4 lean to them. They kind of lean out 4 in the direction of the bow of the ship. Up here, when you put those pieces on up here, they kind of go toward the aft end of the ship. Also started to get together photo etch A30, which is this fence piece right here, a railing piece right here. As you can see, that was quite a bit of bending. That was a little bit unusual, and I'll show you kind of how I did that here without the actual parts. But I took some tape, some really thick 40 millimeter Tamiya tape, and put it down on a workbench, sticky side up, and then I was able to take my railing and put it down on that tape and make my bends. And I was able to hold that there while I went to the rest of that, and it held this perfectly in place while I was able to take pliers and apply bends around the rest of the piece. Also kind of helped that I was able to take some tape and kind of trace the shape that I was going for. I wasn't able to make it exact because the part was already on the mast, but I got a good idea of how it should look, and it made putting that on there much easier. Back to where we were. Most of these railing pieces are all left off right now because they need to get painted before I put them on, and they're going to go into areas where it's going to be a little difficult and tricky to get that non-skid color down first. So we'll get that non-skid color down, and then we'll get these on after they're all painted up. Which left us with this crow's nest area. Nothing really super tricky here. Tiny little photo etch parts that'll go on, but they're pretty straightforward bends on those 4 right there. And just make sure you take special care to clean up the seams on this and you'll also see there is a lane to this because the mast has got a rear rake to it. I believe that's the term, where there's an angle going aft. This right here goes straight up and down though, 90 degrees to the waterline. If you turn it like this, you see it also goes out a little bit to the port side and then up. This right here is supposed to go out to the starboard side. That's as it is. Last but not least, special attention to this photo-etch A34 part. Is so flimsy, you're going to be attaching a little bit of rigging to this. So I had some 0.2 millimeter smooth steel wire. I think it's meant for guitars, that I was able to cut to size and attach to the bottom of this, so I've got a little bit more rigidity here versus this really floppy, flimsy piece of photo etch. So that, for the most part, wraps it up with this mast part. Okay, so now we're on page 27, step 31. This right here is concerning the very tippy top piece of the superstructure, and it fits right in front of that mast. It's got a number of structures on top of it, one of which is a radar dish. Looks like it's got that defense system also on there, and then it looks like it's got another kind of a I'm not sure really what that is, but some other kind of system for the ship. There's also some railings that go on it. There's some brass photo etch steps that go up the front side of this, and then there's another little platform. So for the most part, this was just a lot of the small same bits and bobs that we've been putting into the superstructure, bulkheads, in different various places around the ship. Nothing too hard or too stressful. A couple of the little camera fixtures, D18 also on there. Some fire hoses, D1. And yeah, generally it went pretty quick, pretty easy. The photo etch ladder, photo etch A62, even went a little bit more smoothly than most of the rest of the ladders that I've put into this model kit so far. So very easy to go. Got everything put together and it's ready for painting. I left the railings off at this point, just for the simple fact that I want to get that dark deck, that non-skid color, down on top of there before I put down those photo etch railings. Those photo etch railings would get colored the same color as the rest of most of the ship, and the vertical surface is the XF12. So once those colors are down, and once the different assemblies are painted, then I can start getting it all put together, and we'll get that radar dish that's complete. We'll put that down on top of this little superstructure piece, along with the defense system that's on there as well, because those will be painted in that lighter shaded gray, and going down on top of that shade on the deck for the non-skid. And just got to keep those separate until we're ready to get everything put together. So at this point, I also kind of left that off of that main bridge piece, just for the simple fact that this piece and the mast are supposed to go down at the same time, because they almost interlock with one another, and how the backside of this little superstructure piece is shaped, it conforms perfectly to the front edge of the mast piece. So kind of playing around with it and tested out that if I put one on, then the other doesn't fit perfectly. And with the way the tolerances are on this kit, with the painting and everything like that, just having a little bit of primer and paint on a lot of these pieces throws the fit off quite a bit. So I just want to make sure that we get everything painted, we get everything test fitted, so that when we're ready, we're not fiddling around with it. We're able to get it all in place. We know everything's going to fit, and all we're doing is putting down a little cement or a little bit of glue in order to get it set into place permanently. So that'll be coming up in a couple of videos very soon. Okay, as I've started to learn here, with making these videos, a lot of times the backdrop is crucial in maintaining decent focus on what I'm trying to show everybody. Also, I've learned that it is crucial in making some of this stand out really well versus contrast against something like that. Kind of like completely changes how that looks. So put this back in place. And a lot of the detail stands out quite a bit better now. So I just wanted to show off real quickly what the finished mast piece looks like before we apply some paint. This pine wood really kind of helps a lot of the details stand out here. So we can really see the rake to the mast here. You can really see how there is a rake to these photo etch pieces I tried pointing out to earlier. This is a negative rake, I would imagine. See some of these railings up here a little bit better. And a lot of these smaller pieces just kind of really stand out. I'm pretty happy with my work on this part. It was just really required a delicate touch. I'm glad I was able to get everything put together and make it look like a decent attempt. So there's that. It was fun putting together, a little bit challenging. And for the most part, we did it without a lot of filming on this particular video, just so I could really get a good idea of how it went together. I will be showing in an upcoming video the full assembly of this. Now that I know how it goes together, should be able to do so without being right over top of it. So that's what that looks like. Here is that superstructure part. So here's a bunch of these tiny little pieces right here. The little video camera pieces. Maybe just get those to stand out there. You can see the little brass ladder rungs. Not a whole lot goes into this. Get the railings though to go on afterwards. Here is the little defense system. I'll have to dig into this and have a look and see what this is all about, but I believe it is a defensive system to combat aerial threats. This is fairly simple to put together. There's 3 pieces, just these 2 side pieces here. One of them has a long peg that goes all the way through this center piece right here, but cleanup was pretty easy. The parts are keyed to one another, the sides are keyed to one another, so pretty quick, pretty easy to put together. All right, and there is all of the railings I left off up here. You can see they're all on top of some Tamiya tape right now. It's not as tacky as this blue masking tape. This blue masking tape though is great for the plastic parts that I left off. And there's that last little system that'll go on top of that last piece of superstructure. So that does it for this video. 13A is a wrap. Next up will be 13B, and that should be all these pieces that have some paint on them. I'm going to start getting them assembled, and so once we have them painted, all of that assembled, then we should be able to go on to getting the windows in the bridge, starting to apply some oil filters and some washes and some weathering techniques to those pieces, and then we should be able to start getting those parts all put together. So it'll be really exciting to get those things weathered together, put together, and have it pretty much for the most part the forward half of the ship completed. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, like I always ask, please leave that feedback for me in the comment section here in this video. I also like it if you're able to send me some ideas of some of the systems are that I'm looking at and I have no idea what they're doing or what they do or what they're called. Or if you're able to even give me some kind of guidance or correction on if I'm labeling something incorrectly. So I really appreciate the feedback and it helps me grow. I thank you very much for your time. Be safe and happy modeling.